Hannah had already told me to go sleep. I had already told her I was going to brush my teeth and give emotional advice to my ceiling fan instead. She had laughed, said, "Good night, Ralph," in that tired voice she used when she was still wired but pretending she was fine. I said, "Good night, Miller." Then I tossed my phone onto the bed and walked into the bathroom. That should have been it. 10 minutes before that, she had been sitting in her car outside her apartment, giving me the full report from her cousin's engagement dinner like I was the evening's official witness. "You would have hated it," she said. "I hate most things after 8:30. You would have hated it with structure. There were assigned seats. That's not dinner. That's a board meeting with frosting. There was cake," she said. "Actually good cake. Like, suspiciously good." I took a second slice and my Aunt Diane looked at me like I'd stolen from a church donation box. That woman has always had strong dessert opinions. She asked when I'm settling down. "Did you tell her Tuesday?" I told her I'm busy Tuesday. I was lying on my bed in sweatpants, one sock on, one sock lost somewhere under the blanket. This was normal for us. Hannah driving home and calling me before she even made it upstairs. Me answering like I had not been waiting for the screen to light up. She worked with kids all day as a speech therapist, then somehow still had energy to talk fast enough to make my phone warm. I worked in commercial insurance, which she said meant I sold panic with spreadsheets. We had been like this for almost 9 years. Airport pickups. Grocery runs. Bad movies. Flu medicine left at doors. Furniture assembled badly and then insulted until it behaved. Everyone else had opinions about us. We survived by making jokes faster than they could ask questions. "So," she said, and her voice shifted a little. "Then Mason asked if I was bringing you to the wedding." Mason being the fiancé. The very tall one with the tiny dog, yes. "Respect him already." He said, "Everyone already assumes." I stared at the ceiling. There it was. That small gap in the conversation. The kind we usually sprinted past. I could hear her car ticking softly, cooling down in the background. I could picture her sitting there with one hand still on the wheel, hair pinned up but falling loose around her face because she always fought with bobby pins and lost. I should have said something real. Instead, I did what I always did. "Well, I am emotionally unavailable in a professional capacity," I said. "There may be a fee." She laughed, but it came out thinner than usual. "Of course there's a fee," she said. "Insurance guy. Panic with spreadsheets." "Exactly." The silence after that was maybe 2 seconds. Maybe less. But I felt it like somebody had left a door open. Then she cleared her throat and went back to the safe stuff. Her cousin's speech was too long. Her uncle wore white sneakers with a suit. Somebody's kid put a bread roll in a centerpiece. The cake really was good. By the time she got inside her building, we sounded normal again. That was our talent. Sounding normal. "Go sleep," she said. "You have that client thing tomorrow. I'll simply impress them with dark circles and fear." Very on brand. "You too. Stop sitting in your car like a dramatic raccoon. I'm walking in now. Proud of you. Good night, Ralph." "Good night, Miller." I brushed my teeth, splashed water on my face, and came back into the bedroom expecting to see my lock screen dark. Instead, my phone was still lit. And Olivia's voice was coming out of it. "Did you tell him?" I stopped halfway to the bed. Hannah said something too low for me to catch. Olivia, her roommate, spoke again. "Hannah." "No," Hannah said, clearer now. "I didn't tell him." My stomach tightened. I knew I should grab the phone and hang up. I knew it immediately. There was no debate. No gray area. This was private. But for 1 second, my body did not move. Why not? Olivia asked. Because he made a joke. Olivia gave this tired little laugh. Ralph uses jokes like a panic room. That landed too cleanly. I stood there in my dark bedroom with mint toothpaste still sharp in my mouth, and I hated how accurate it was. Not because Olivia was wrong. Because she was exactly right. Hannah sighed. I could hear keys hit a bowl, then the soft thud of her purse dropping somewhere. I had the opening, she said. Mason said everyone already assumes, and Ralph just, did Ralph. Because you let him. I know. Then stop letting him. It's not that simple. It kind of is. No, Liv. It's not. Hannah's voice got quieter, and that should have been my warning. That should have snapped me out of it. My hand finally moved toward the phone. Then Hannah said it. Every time I imagine my life actually working out, Ralph is already in it. I ended the call so fast my thumb slipped the first time. Then the room went silent. Not peaceful silent. Not late night silent. The kind of silent that feels like it is waiting to see what kind of man you are. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the phone. My first instinct was to pretend it had not happened. That would have been easy. I could let tomorrow come, text her something stupid about coffee, complain about my client presentation, and we would keep living inside the same old routine. Hannah and Ralph. Ralph and Hannah. Best friends. Nothing to see here. Everyone else was dramatic. We were reasonable. Except now I had heard her say it. And worse, some part of me had wanted it to be true before I even understood what she was saying. I picked up the phone, set it down, picked it up again. My hands felt weird. Too awake. Like the rest of me was standing behind them, watching. I typed one message, deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Then I stopped trying to make it smooth. The call didn't disconnect. I heard something I wasn't supposed to hear. I ended it as soon as I realized, but I heard enough. We need to talk tomorrow. I stared at the message until the little status changed. Delivered. Then read. Nothing happened for almost a full minute. I sat there with my phone in both hands, knowing I had just stepped on the one floorboard we had spent 9 years walking around. Then Hannah's reply appeared. Hannah, how much did you hear? I did not sleep much after Hannah's text. I answered her with the truth, because lying at that point would have been a weird kind of cowardice. Olivia asked if you told me. You said no. She said I used jokes like a panic room. Then I heard what you said about imagining your life working out. That's when I hung up. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. I stared at my phone until my eyes hurt. Part of me wanted her to send something long, something that explained it away, something that gave us both an exit. Like maybe she meant I was in her life as her emergency contact or furniture assembly partner. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe Olivia had been talking about something else. But I knew better. I knew Hannah's voice. I knew the difference between a sentence she tossed out and one that cost her something. The next morning, I gave a client presentation on muscle memory and caffeine. I stood in a conference room with 6 people in pressed shirts, clicking through slides about liability exposure and risk categories, while the only words in my head were, Ralph is already in it. At one point, my boss nodded at me like I had made a strong point. I had no idea what point that was. My phone buzzed right after the meeting ended. Hannah, are you free around noon? I stood in the hallway outside the conference room while 2 coworkers walked past arguing about lunch. Yes. Hannah, park by your office. I'll be there. No joke. No, do I need protective gear? No, should I bring a lawyer? Nothing. Just yes. That alone felt like a new language. The park was 3 blocks from my building, one of those small downtown places with too many pigeons and not enough shade. I found Hannah on a bench near the walking path, wearing sunglasses even though the sky was gray. She had her hair pulled back, but not neatly. She looked tired in a way I had almost never seen on her. Hannah could work with 7 preschoolers before lunch and still roast me for buying the wrong hummus. But sitting there, hands folded around a paper coffee cup, she looked like she had spent the whole night trying not to lose something. I walked up, and for the first time in maybe 9 years, neither of us smiled automatically. That scared me more than anything. Because humor had always been our bridge. If something was awkward, we made it funny. If something was sad, we made it survivable. If someone got too close to the truth, one of us kicked a joke into the middle of the room and we both pretended not to notice the dent it left. "Hey," I said. "Hey." I sat beside her, leaving maybe a foot between us. It felt both polite and wrong. She looked down at her coffee. "So. Yeah. How much did you hear?" I took a breath. My instinct was right there, ready to save me. I could have said, enough to know Olivia should bill hourly. I could have made her laugh. I could have made myself useful by making the whole thing smaller. But Olivia's line had been following me since midnight. Ralph uses jokes like a panic room. So I did not run into it. "I heard Olivia ask if you told me," I said. "I heard you say no because I made a joke. I heard her say the panic room thing. Then I heard you say that every time you imagine your life working out, I'm already in it." Hannah closed her eyes behind the sunglasses. "I hung up right after that," I said. "I shouldn't have heard any of it. I'm sorry." She shook her head once. "I know you didn't keep listening." "I didn't. I know." Her voice was quiet. "I just didn't want you to find out like that." "I know." She let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh but did not make it. "That's usually where you say something stupid." "I know." She turned her head toward me. "Are you okay?" That was such a Hannah question that it nearly broke me. She was the one sitting there humiliated and afraid, and she was still checking whether I was okay. "I'm not leaving the bench," I said. Her lips parted a little. "I mean it," I said. "I'm not leaving just because the conversation got honest." For a few seconds, she did not say anything. A jogger went by with a dog that looked happier than both of us combined. Somewhere behind us, a delivery truck beeped as it backed up. Then Hannah took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were tired. A little red. She looked embarrassed, but not dramatic. Hannah had never been someone who collapsed into a moment. She sat in it, jaw tight, trying to stay practical even when her whole face gave her away. "There was another part," she said. My chest tightened. "Okay." "Olivia asked what I wanted to do about the wedding." I nodded slowly. "And I said I wanted to ask you to come." "You had already mentioned Mason asked." "Not like that." She looked at the coffee cup again, turning it between her hands. "Not as a shield from my relatives. Not as a joke. Not because you're good at making Aunt Diane uncomfortable, even though you are. I consider that public service." Her mouth twitched, but she did not let us escape into it. "I wanted one night," she said, "where I didn't have to pretend you were only the person I called afterward." That sentence sat between us, quiet and heavy. I looked at her, really looked at her, and suddenly all the years behind us felt crowded. Her asleep in my passenger seat after a delayed flight. Me holding a flashlight while she tried to fix her sink because she refused to call maintenance after 9. The two of us in grocery aisles arguing about cereal like an old married couple while strangers smiled at us. Every woman I had dated eventually noticing that Hannah was the first person I wanted to tell things to. I had called that friendship because it was safer. Maybe it was friendship. But it was not only that. "So," I said, keeping my voice steady, "are you asking me as your best friend, or as the man already in the life you keep imagining? Hannah looked straight at me then. Both. I swallowed. She kept going before I could speak. I want you there because you matter most. And because I am tired of pretending I don't want you beside me in every way that counts. There it was. No room to dodge. No room to make it cute. My heart was beating hard, but not in a bad way. More like it had been waiting by a locked door and somebody finally turned the key. The scariest part, I said, was not hearing you say it. Hannah's face changed. What was? That I wanted it to be true. She went still. I've known something was there for a long time, I said. I just built a whole personality around not noticing. That got the smallest real laugh from her, but it came with tears sitting close enough to matter. I'm serious, I said. Every time someone asked about us, I made it ridiculous. Every time you said something that felt too close, I moved it back with a joke. I told myself I was protecting what we had. Were you? I think I was protecting myself from finding out I wanted more and maybe you didn't. She looked away toward the path. I thought I was the only one. You weren't. The words came out simple. Almost too simple for something that had taken 9 years to say. Hannah nodded once, like she needed to physically take that in. I don't want us to do something just because the call glitched, she said. Me neither. And I don't want one private sentence to push us into acting brave for 12 hours and then panicking. I have a strong panic resume. I know, she said. But I don't want to waste another year pretending everyone else is delusional and we're the only reasonable people alive. She looked back at me, and for the first time that day, the corner of her mouth lifted like she recognized me. Not the version of me hiding. The version trying. So what are we doing? She asked. I don't know exactly. That is not very insurance of you. I can make a chart later. Please don't. I won't. We sat there with the gray sky over us and the city moving around like nothing had changed. Cars passed. People walked by. Somewhere, somebody laughed into a phone. But everything had changed. Hannah's hand shifted on the bench between us. Not all the way to mine. Just enough to ask without asking. I looked down at it. Then I turned my hand over, palm open. She touched my fingers first, cautious, like even that small thing needed permission. Then I laced my fingers through hers. Her hand was cold. I held it anyway. Neither of us said, "So we're together now." Neither of us tried to name it too quickly or dress it up into something official before it could breathe. But we did not let go. And sitting there on that bench, with my best friend's hand in mine and no joke ready to rescue me, I knew one thing clearly. Whatever we were now, we were no longer nothing. By Saturday evening, I had tried on 3 shirts, rejected 2 ties, and stood in front of my bathroom mirror like the tie could explain what Hannah and I were now. It could not. Nothing had technically happened since the bench except 100 small things that felt louder than they should have. Her texts were the same, but not the same. She still sent me a picture of a crooked grocery cart and said, "You driving?" I still told her my coworker used the phrase, "synergy refresh," and deserved consequences. But now there was this second conversation under every normal one. We had held hands. That was all. That was not all. When I pulled up outside her apartment, I parked and sat there for a second with both hands on the wheel. I had prepared a line. Something easy. Something calm. Something like, "You clean up nice for a person who once ate cereal out of a measuring cup." Then Hannah opened the front door. The line disappeared. She was wearing a soft blue dress, simple but unfairly effective, and her hair was down over one shoulder. She looked like herself, only turned up in a way I was not ready for. Not flashy. Not trying too hard. Just Hannah, standing there with one hand on the doorframe, watching me lose the ability to speak. She smiled slowly. Oh, she said. This is useful information. I got out of the car. What is? You can be quiet. I'm choosing mystery. No, you forgot your joke. I did not. You absolutely did. I walked around to the passenger side because I needed something to do with my hands. You look really good. Her smile softened, and for half a second the air between us went still. Thank you, she said. You too. Before I could answer, Olivia appeared behind her holding a glass of wine and wearing the expression of a woman who had been personally managing our emotional delays for years. No, Olivia said, pointing between us. Absolutely not. Hannah turned. What? No emotionally regressing informal wear. I mean it. No panic room jokes. No pretending the lighting did all the work. You two are 33 years old. Act like your frontal lobes are installed. I looked at Hannah. Is she coming with us? She has her own ride. Good. I was scared she'd bring a clipboard. Olivia raised her glass. I have notes in my phone. Of course you do, Hannah said, grabbing her purse. Olivia leaned closer as Hannah stepped outside. Have fun. Be honest. And Ralph? Yeah. If you make one joke at the wrong time, I'm billing you for 9 years. Fair. The drive to the wedding was only 20 minutes, but it felt longer because both of us were acting normal with too much effort. Hannah adjusted the vent. I asked if she wanted music. She said nothing too romantic, so I put on a playlist I used for work commutes. She looked at me like I had insulted the car. Ralph, this is tax music. It is not tax music. This song has a belt and orthopedic shoes. I changed it. There we were again. Easy. Familiar. But when she laughed, her knee angled toward mine, and when we stopped at a red light, I noticed her hand resting open on her lap like she had not decided whether to reach for me. I noticed everything now. The venue was a renovated brick building with big windows and too many candles. The second we walked in, one of Hannah's aunts spotted us. There they are, she said, like we had arrived as a set. Hannah's shoulder brushed mine. Usually, this was where one of us corrected it. Usually, I would say something like, I'm just here for cake security, and Hannah would roll her eyes and call me unbearable. This time, neither of us said anything. Her aunt hugged her, then me, which was aggressive considering we had met maybe twice. Ralph, right? You should come to more things. Hannah glanced at me. I'm starting to agree. That one sentence followed me all the way through the ceremony. At dinner, we sat at a round table with 2 cousins, an uncle, Hannah's Aunt Diane, and a couple who kept whispering about the centerpieces. People talked to us like we were together. Not in a pushy way. Not even with surprise. More like they were relieved we had finally stopped wasting everybody's patience. Nobody asked, "Are you two dating?" Somehow that was worse. Hannah's knee brushed mine under the table during the salad course. I assumed it was an accident, so I shifted slightly. Her knee followed and stayed there. I looked at her. She took a sip of water like she had done nothing at all. Fine, I thought. So we were doing this. The evening became dangerous in small ordinary ways. I helped her with her chair and her hand touched my wrist. We stood close during the speeches because the room was crowded, and she did not move away. When people laughed at the best man's story, she leaned toward me and whispered, "If you ever give a speech that long, I'm faking a power outage." I'd deserve it. You would. Every few minutes, I had the strange urge to tell someone, "We are not pretending tonight." But nobody needed the update. Everyone seemed ahead of us. After dinner, the music started. Fast songs first, then loud ones, then the kind of songs that got uncles onto the dance floor with alarming confidence. Hannah and I watched from the edge of the room while her cousin danced with Mason, the very tall fiancé with the tiny dog. She looked happy, and for once nobody was making that happiness complicated. Then the music slowed. Hannah turned to me before I could prepare a defense. "Don't say you don't dance." "I was not going to say that." "You were absolutely going to say that." "I was going to say I dance selectively." "That's worse." She held out her hand. I looked at it, then at her. "You sure?" Her face changed, not much, just enough. "Yes." So I took her hand. The dance floor was full of couples moving in slow circles, some graceful, some barely awake. I placed my hand at Hannah's waist carefully, like we were both aware of the exact spot where friendship became something else. She rested her hand on my shoulder. For the first few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she looked up at me and said, "This is weird." "A little." "Bad weird?" "No." "Good weird?" "Dangerous weird." She let out a breath, almost a laugh. "Yeah." We moved slowly, not really dancing well, but not embarrassing ourselves either. Her fingers were warm against the back of my neck. I tried not to think too hard about that and immediately failed. Halfway through the song, she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "And you won't do the thing?" "What thing?" "The thing where you make the answer smaller so I don't have to feel awkward for asking." I looked at her. "I won't." She held my gaze, brave and nervous at the same time. "Do you ever think about kissing me?" she asked. "Or am I the only one losing that argument?" Everything in the room seemed to keep moving except me. The old version of me had at least 5 jokes ready. Something about survey data. Something about legal counsel. Something about needing to check my calendar. I let all of them pass. "Yes," I said. Her hand tightened slightly on my shoulder. "How often?" she asked. That is a dangerous follow-up question. This time, the tiny smile she gave me did not feel like an escape. It felt like relief. "Me too," she said. The song ended. People around us clapped for no reason other than the music had stopped, but Hannah and I did not move right away. My hand was still at her waist. Her fingers were still near my collar. The question stayed between us, no longer hidden, no longer theoretical. I leaned closer, then stopped. Not because I did not want to. Because I did. Too much to let it happen in the middle of a dance floor while her relatives watched from every angle. "You want some air?" I asked. Hannah nodded. I took her hand again, and this time it felt less like testing and more like choosing. We walked past the dessert table, past a cluster of cousins laughing near the bar, and out through a side door into a small courtyard strung with warm lights. The night air was cool. The music softened behind us. And when the door closed, Hannah and I were finally alone outside, with the kiss question still standing right there between us. The courtyard was small, almost hidden behind the venue, with brick walls on 3 sides and strings of warm lights hanging overhead. There were 2 metal chairs, a round table nobody was using, and one sad potted plant fighting for its life near the door. Hannah rubbed her arms. I took off my jacket and held it out. She looked at it. "This feels dangerously smooth." "I know. I'm uncomfortable too." She smiled, but she took it and slipped it over her shoulders. The sleeves went past her hands, and that somehow made the whole thing worse for my ability to think clearly. For a minute, we just stood there listening to the music through the wall. Then Hannah said, "I'm scared." That pulled me back to the ground. "Yeah," I said. "Me too." She looked at me, not trying to hide it now. "If we try this and it doesn't work, I don't just lose some guy I dated for a while." Write in the comments, were Hannah and I right to risk 9 years of friendship for something more, or should we have protected what we already had? I nodded. "I lose Sunday calls," she said. "And grocery runs." And you giving strong opinions about furniture you don't own. And the person I text when my day goes sideways. I wanted to tell her that would never happen, but I did not want to hand her a promise just because it sounded good. We had spent too many years using easy words to avoid harder ones. I know, I said. That's what scares me too. She folded her arms inside my jacket. Then why are we standing out here? Because not naming it has started costing us. Her eyes stayed on mine. It's costing honesty, I said. And peace. And my ability to go on a second date without comparing someone to you before the appetizers show up. Hannah blinked. You did that too. By the second drink, usually. Her face shifted, like something she had carried alone had finally been set down between us. I thought I was the only one, she said. You weren't. The lights above us swayed a little in the breeze. Inside, everyone was probably dancing, eating cake, taking pictures, acting like normal people at a wedding. Out here, I felt like we were standing at the edge of the life we already had, trying to decide whether to admit what it had been turning into. I don't want to rush because of the phone call, I said. I don't either. And I don't want you thinking I'm doing this because I heard something private and now I feel responsible for it. She stepped closer. I don't. I've imagined kissing you, I said. A lot. I just kept acting like I hadn't. Hannah's voice got softer. I'm not confused, Ralph. I stayed still. I'm not saying this because of the wedding, she said. I'm not saying it because of the music or the dress or because people keep assuming things. And I'm not saying it because of one glass of champagne I didn't even finish. I almost smiled. You abandoned champagne. It was too dry. Tragic. Do not hide right now. I let the smile fade. She took one more step, close enough that I could see the small tired lines under her eyes from the night before, close enough that this no longer felt like a question from the dance floor. I'm done losing that argument with myself, she said. So I stopped making her be the brave one. I touched her face, slowly enough that she could move away if she wanted to. She did not. Then I kissed her. At first it was careful. Almost too careful. Like both of us understood that this was not just a kiss. This was 9 years of almosts, jokes, late-night calls, bad timing, and pretending the obvious thing was not obvious. Then Hannah's hand came up and held the front of my shirt, and the careful part changed. Not reckless. Not rushed. Certain. When we finally pulled back, she kept her forehead near mine and laughed once under her breath. What? I asked. I'm annoyed. That was not the reaction I was hoping for. I'm annoyed because now I know we could have been doing that. I laughed, and this time it did not feel like hiding. Fair. The side door opened behind us. Olivia stepped out, saw us, and stopped with her hand still on the handle. Oh, thank God, she said. Hannah stepped back but did not look embarrassed. Liv. No. I need a moment. Olivia pointed at both of us. As the unpaid emotional consultant of this entire disaster, I would like to say, finally. I rubbed my forehead. Do you have to be everywhere? Yes. That's how consulting works. Hannah laughed, and the tightness that had been sitting around us all night finally loosened. When we went back inside, Hannah kept my jacket on and took my hand before we reached the door. Not halfway. Not hidden. Fingers laced through mine like she had already decided she was tired of pretending. People noticed. Of course they did. Aunt Diane saw us first and gave Hannah a look so satisfied it almost deserved its own table setting. Mason lifted his glass from across the room like we had completed a group project. Nobody looked shocked. That was the strange part. The whole room reacted like the obvious answer had finally arrived late but dressed correctly. The next morning mattered more than the kiss. I knew that when I woke up before my alarm, staring at the ceiling with a nervous kind of happiness sitting in my chest. So I got coffee. Then bagels. Then I drove to Hannah's apartment and stood outside her door trying not to overthink how many bagels said, "I like you," versus, "I am emotionally unstable with carbohydrates." She opened the door in sweatpants, hair messy, my jacket folded over one arm. Before either of us spoke, Olivia shouted from somewhere inside, "Blessings upon the emotionally delayed man." Hannah closed her eyes. "I'm moving out." "You say that every week," Olivia called. Hannah let me in, and we sat on her couch with coffee cups on the table between us. For once, neither of us needed to fill the silence right away. "I don't want to stop being your best friend," I said. Her face softened. "I don't either. I want the grocery runs. And the bad movies. And the calls after awful days. I want all of it." "Me too. I just don't want to keep using best friend as the smallest name for what you are." Hannah looked down, smiling in that quiet way that made me feel like I had finally said the thing correctly. "We go slow," she said. "Slow," I agreed. "But not timid." "No," I said. "Not timid." And that was how we started. Not with some huge announcement. Not by becoming different people overnight. We still argued in grocery aisles. We still watched terrible movies and judged every choice. She still called after hard days, and I still answered like I had been waiting. Only now, when she fell asleep against my shoulder, I kissed her hair. When we walked to the store, she held my hand. When people assumed, we stopped correcting them. Later, half her books, mugs, and cardigans were already in my apartment, and she looked around one night and said, "I kind of live here emotionally." So we made it official. And every time Hannah imagined her life working out, I was already in it. Now neither of us had to hide that.